if Deputy Timoteo Zambrano allows me, paraphrasing what he was speaking then. It was like a vision of the future. With the arrival of the new National Assembly, we would completely substitute and replace the National Assembly that had been elected in 2015, where a coalition, a powerful coalition of the entire united opposition had obtained a great electoral victory. In life, one has to have balance in everything, in victory and defeat, in difficult moments and in the good moments. There's never a definite victory and there's never a definite defeat. And unfortunately, that 2015, between a coalition of the opposition won by a majority, the National Assembly, the political heading of that National Assembly did not know how to manage the power that the people gave them with their vote. They did the exact opposite of what they promised, of what they promoted. And with that power, they always let go. They always follow the more ambitious, perversive minds by the most extremist mind that from the oligarchy of the far right, fully dependent of the US mandate, have always wanted to reach to a moment of a final battle, of a definite defeat of the Bolivarian Revolution that we bravely and with a lot of love we carry on because of our convictions. We have to remember Deputy Jorge Rodriguez, the mismanagement completed without idea of those that had power and the hegemonic decision of that opposition. Where are they? Where are they? Those that stole the political victory of that year. Where are they? Almost all of them are today multimillionaires living in big mansions in Madrid, in Miami, and in other places like Washington. Where are they? Those that promised and did not deliver. We have to remember how, unfortunately, Venezuela began a cycle of pain and sacrifice that we call of strong resistance to all kinds of conspirations. How they work year by year, 2016, to overthrow the government, like if Venezuelan voters had elected them to overthrow the legitimate government, to substitute illegally the elected government, always making the mistake of overestimating their strength and provide lies and not fulfill what they promise, and the worst of all the mistakes of underestimate the immense moral political power that the Bolivarian Revolution has, that has had, has and will have the ideals of Chavez in this 21st century. A fundamental strength to talk about Venezuelan politics in this century. It's a dangerous cocktail, harmful. It is dangerous to overestimate their own strength. To get greedy and overconfident that takes them to a point past madness. One goes back and see those videos of 2016, the speeches of that time, of the main spokespersons here and abroad, and one realizes how out of place they made the same promises. The final battle, the final day, and now is the day. Today it is. Now. Right on the verge of madness. And they harm their own voters, and they harm even more our country. Today the situation is different. But their craziness, their hate have turned into fascism. In 2016 we didn't speak about fascism. I said it then. Deputies of the opposition, many of you were part of that coalition bloc that was victorious. Today you continue to be part of an important opposition coalition here in Venezuela, and I respect the differences that exist between us, between our political parties. Opinion is welcome. In democracy, all is possible. But here, right here in this palace, that day, December, Jorge Rodriguez, you that have a very good memory. That day of December, 3, 6, I don't remember, from the year 2015, it was precisely that moment. December 6th, Jorge Rodriguez, as head of the Electoral Commission. I was Sunday in the night, was here in the presidential office, accompanied by different colleagues, but I remember that Jose Vicente Rangel was there with me. And even if we had a few warnings that the election was going to be a close one, and I say this truly, always prepare for anything, always to really assume victories and defeats, threats, always ready, all of us. I received the call from Jorge Rodriguez, who from the voting center told me in time and told me we are completely lost in these elections. And among us we had a debate, because there were colleagues of ours that amid the economic war that we were suffering in 2015, the Obama's decree threatening us, how they took away all the supplies in 70% of the markets, how they created the big lines, which was the headquarters of the far right, the last line. The results of those elections had not been free, because the people was submitted to a blockade, to a war, to lack of supplies, and to many other ways of psychological warfare. And that debate, we ended it when the president of the National Electoral Council, Tibisay Lucena, came out in national broadcast almost at midnight to give the electoral results that the polls had given, and said that the opposition bloc had triumphed. Immediately, we finished the debate, and I said to all of them, some are here present today, Jose Vicente also sees us from the heavens. I said, we are going to recognize that result as the Democrats we are. We're going to talk plainly to the country. And as soon as Lisa ended her speech, I was also on national broadcast. It was already Monday. There was a lot of our people upset in the interior of the country. I can say this. We are a volcanic force that comes from the centuries. We are the heirs of all the fightings in these past 500 years. We did not get our education in Harvard. We were educated and forged in the struggle for resistance of the neighborhoods of the country, of the factories, and knowing all too well how Commander Chavez taught me and life, knowing all this all too well, this volcanic character of our leadership, I told our colleagues I have to go and talk as soon as possible, because I knew there was a people here that was going to react with a lot of Bolivarian fury. And I knew there is a strength there that is called the Bolivarian fury, that is in the blood of the people due to the evil that they had bestowed upon us and that they had triumphed in that year 2015. I beg pardon to the opposition deputies here for speaking of a subject that is in the past, but is the truth, Jorge Rodriguez. And seconds away from that, I came out and say, as is recorded. And you know this, those that are in TikTok, in Instagram, you can go and look for these videos. I went out and I believe I was wearing a red jacket, and said, the National Electoral Council, as electoral power of this country, has spoken, and it's sacred word. We have electoral results. I recognize the victory of the opposition at the National Assembly. But I also said, remembering Commander Chavez, you have to know how to manage your victory. And I also said to the world has to know that in Venezuela is not a democratic opposition that has won. Although I knew there were powerful democratic currents inside that opposition. In Venezuela, who have won is a counter-revolution. And you can look up for that video. Publish it on your TikTok. America can also put it on her TikTok. She's on TikTok. And then we began to deal. They named Henry Ramos Aluz as the first president, surprise. And Henry Ramos Aluz was going every day to have lunch at this meat restaurant that is near the church conference with the field marshals, Freddy Guevara. They think that I don't know. I know that he had lunch with Freddy Guevara, with the others, because he would say we have to win those guys from the right, and doing things to that far right. In the end, he fell deep and failed in the opportunity that life had given him to return to politics. All that story, you know it well. So the year 2017 came with Julio Borges, one of the criminals, thief, one of the worst that we have known in the political history of Venezuela in 200 years. And there have been bad people in politics here in this country. There have been very good people. There have been honorable people, like the President Rómulo Gallego, like General Isaías María. We have had honorable people, without a doubt. In our policy in 20th century, and in the 19th century we had the great Ezequiel Zamora, our forefathers. There have been a lot of traitors and bad people in politics. About that we could write entire encyclopedias, but I think that the worst chapter the most perverse of a calculated crime, of an ambush, of a murderous ambush, and of great theft, Julio Andres Jorge is the one that takes it home. Today, living as a tycoon in Spain and managing bank accounts. They named him president for a kind of rotation. It was the turn of the Primero Justicia party back then. You allow me to say sorry because I don't want to offend that party, because you knew all too well that man. Those that today are part of that political group know him very well. They have denounced him publicly. And what did he do? In the year 2017, he headed the violent action, the most destructive action that we have known in decades. The guarimbas in 2017. Who can forget these guarimbas in 2017? Who? 120 days of violence, organized, financed, and maintained. It was a moment that they had 1,000 points in the country, upheld with criminal groups and with some oppositions that were being deceived, that believed that through violence and to burn and break and to destroy and shoot, they would accomplish something in Venezuela. They forced me to activate a constitutional mechanism that is foreseen here in this constitution, which is to invoke the original constituent power, that, and with that is that we began to balance the burden with that glorious National Assembly of the year 2017 that saved the Republic, that saved peace, that brought understanding and defeated extremism. What did they do? Did we forget? Maybe those younger, our elementary student skills have to listen to our testimonies. But this youth from the golden generation, this younger youth that is headed by America, Grecia, Genesis, among other girls, Roberta, that youth grew up in the schools. We defended their right to school, and they rose seeing the truth of the destruction that the guarimbas brought. And then came the elections, governors, one election, an election for dignity, a giant victory. Then came the mayorships, and then came the betrayed electoral process of 2018. Summing up, for what purpose they used that huge capital power that they won in 2015? To harm, to destroy, to self-destroy themselves. And one small detail would Jose Vicente Rangel said, a data to get wealthy at outrageous levels that cannot be fathomed by any of us that are here today. They got really wealthy of the main leaders of that oligarchy of the last names and the far right that despise the rest of Venezuelans, including the opposition, that they only use them. 2019 came, and with 2019 came the greatest gift that they gave Venezuela. On January 23rd, of the National Assembly, in contempt, president for that year, because it was their time for those that were out of the popular will. And they designated an unknown person. Then all Venezuelans knew who he was. It was a US agent with a lot of years of training and preparation. And they thought that the mandate was made. And on January 23rd, before the extremist screams and surprisingly, they tried a coup d'etat. But the first coup d'etat was made against the opposition when that afternoon, there in the Chacao Square, in a public square, sworn in to be president of Venezuela from that day. And began the rehearsal, the failed rehearsal of Juan Guaidó. And once again from this presidential palace, I used for the first time the people's balcony, sacred forest, from where Commander Chavez would speak to our people. And from that balcony of the people, that January 23rd, in the year 2019, I said, this is a coup d'etat to try a military intervention in Venezuela. And it's a failed, unconstitutional, immoral. Extremism took all the control of the opposition, and they will fail. And we, with the strength of morality and our people, we will defeat them. And you will see me as president, as constitutional president, in this same balcony in 2020, 21, 2022, 2023, 2024. And you'll see this time pass. We will resist, we will face them, we will defeat them, and we will triumph and persevere. Like your father said, Jorge Rodriguez Gomez. Your father said in the year 70s, we will persevere, we will not be defeated, we will triumph. 5 decades later, we said the same motto in Caracas. History is well known. It's always important, these meetings, these talks, to reflect in a serene and calm manner as time passes how much damage was done to Venezuela. Minister Héctor Rodriguez, in the social aspect, how much damage they did with the criminal sanctions that they asked against Venezuela, and they continue to ask against Venezuela. How hard it was to resist in the hardest moments, in the moment when they stole from Venezuela 99% of our income. From that year we went from 54 billion US dollars to 700 million next year. What country could resist this? That same year, 2019, we had a record inflation in the world, 340,000% of inflation. That same year, 2019, things were completely out of stock for 80% of products for our people. That same year, 2018-2019, from Venezuela, over 1.5 million Venezuelans left the country and escaped that was promoted by them. They were the ones responsible for this vast migration, with their political war, with their economic war, with their criminal sanctions. The truth has to be said, and truth has to be broadcasted in the conscience of a noble people of Venezuela that has right to freedom, to sovereignty, that has a right to democracy, that has a right for the existence of all the political currents, but to add for the homeland, not to destroy them from within, not to try to create a civil war from within. With perseverance and firmness, we have prevented a civil war, and we have defeated them in all scenarios. And in this historical time, we will defeat them again. Write that down. We will defeat them again. To all those extremists. Yesterday, counter-revolutionaries. Today, fascists. With patience. patience, serenity, perseverance, and of course, work. Always work. So sometimes you work faster, sometimes a little slower. As I say to all political, military, police leaders, when it's time to rest, you tell the one next to you, tell continue you take a moment, take a break, and then you continue working together. Work and always work for the future, because those that are working here, we have on our shoulders the destiny of our entire people. And why don't we have the right to a better destiny, or don't we have the right to the exist, to independence, to exist? Or is it that the only people that have this right are the powerful of the world, the imperialists of the world? Do only them have a right? No, they are mistaken. They committed a big mistake with us, because we are the sons and daughters of this giant that is behind me, that is here hugging us, with us. We are the sons and daughters of Bolivar and of all the liberators of this continent that were under the claws of imperialism by Spain for over 300 years. That's the history. Those that understand well, you can always pick them with the truth. Many of you, but for those that want to listen, always the truth. Or I dare to say otherwise, those fascist multimillionaires, they cherish, if only you knew, they compliment themselves from the Field Marshal Pizarro, General Division General Smolansky. They cherish, they compliment themselves because they have good contacts with the White House these days. With the contacts in the White House, they managed to get all the funds for what they call cooperation projects. I'm not a spokesperson for anyone, but I can show you this here. I have all this here. And they speak among themselves. They manage, I got this amount, that amount. They have this on their phones, ready. They will deposit all this money here before the outgoing government of the White House leaves. And the General of Divisions and Defeats, Molansky, and Field Marshal of the Wari, Pizarro, they applaud this. And what can we say of the vampire Antonio Ledesma, who managed to suck all the blood from the dumb neo-Nazi of Milei and from a secret fund that they have that is managed by Patricia Bullrich, the minister. They take, and it's not a little money from the Argentine government that is given to Ledesma. They are doing all the money that they need for them. It's a big business conspiracy of this opposition, of these extremist fascists, for these people that I just named, and many others that are not known and are perverse. You didn't know this. You knew this? Can you bring a coffee, please? To strengthen. You like it, right? You like the gossip. We love it. And if I could tell you, do we want more Guaidos? Do we want? I ask Venezuela. I ask the world. A new Guaido for Venezuela? Is that what you want? Do we want more interventionism? A new Lima group, a decaying, that looks more instead of a Lima group, they look more like Sodoma and Gomorrah. If you don't know what this is, look it up. A real Sodoma and Gomorrah has been put around the new Guaido, a museum of terror. In children's park in the world, there is something that they call the House of Terror, you know? Well, today in Panama, you will be witness of this House of Terror, Sodoma and Gomorrah. Pedophiles as Andres Pastrana, corrupts, bandits and traitors like Mireya Moscoso. And the worst of the Museum of Corruption, of banditry, of drug traffic and pedophilia, of former presidents of our Latin American and Caribbean is all surrounding the new Juan Guaido, Sodoma and Gomorrah. But they do get a lot of money, Every statement, every tweet, every text, every act, every plane ticket, pay. And the outgoing government of the United States and the State Department of the United States, a blank check, always paying. I wish someone in the United States would investigate how the outgoing government of Joe Biden is using U.S. resources to finance the new Guaido. Enough of interventionism, enough extremism, enough of all these Lima groups, of all these people. Do you remember the Lima group? We should recall that, because the human brain, according to specialists and neurologists, they say that the human brain tends to erase those bad memories, those bad moments. It's only natural. It takes it out. Because the human brains tends to focus in the good things, in the beautiful things, in the positive things, in things that motivate life. At least this life, General Padrino. The next life, they say, is just joy if one earns it here. Heaven, with religious utopia. Although those that theology like Pope Francis and many talk about the kingdom of God in the earth. And I believe this as a Christian. But the Grima Loop managed to have, I was speaking this with Celia last night, you remember? They managed to get colleagues, Ricardo Menendez, Gabriela Jimenez, professors, you that are scientists, 25 countries, with their governments, with their satellite governments, all dependent of the U.S. State Department and its government. 25 countries that met every 15 days, and had a statement threatening in the OAS at the petition of Leopoldo Lopez and Guaido. They approved a military intervention against Venezuela and the reactivation of a long-dead zombie, Tiara, the Inter-American Treaty of Self-Defense. That far-right opposition said that it had to be believable, the threat, in their scheme of imperialist psychological warfare. And the Grima Loop here in the map of Venezuela towards the West, Ivan
con el
Duque,
narcotráfico,
with the
los
drug
paramilitares,
trafficking
los
and
campamentos
paramilitaries
de
and the
entrenamiento para invadir a
military
Venezuela,
encampments training to invade
espiando
Venezuela,
el sistema Pegasus a
spying with the
Venezuela
Pegasus system Venezuela,
y encabezando toda la guerra
and
de
leading
todo
all
tipo
the
contra
all the
Venezuela.
kinds of wars against Venezuela.
Hacia el sur,
To the south,
Brasil de Bolsonaro,
we had Bolsonaro's Brazil,
preparando con Mike Pompeo en el sur,
preparing with Mike Pompeo in the south an invasion
promoviendo todos los planes contra
and
Venezuela.
promoting all plans against Venezuela.
Hacia más al sur, Macri.
Even to the south, further south, Macri in Argentina.
En Chile,
In
que
Chile,
en paz descanse
rest in peace,
y el diablo lo tenga en su gloria.
and the devil had him in his glory, Sebastián Piñera.
En Perú,
In Peru,
en Ecuador,
in Ecuador,
25 países.
25 countries.
Y nosotros teníamos una fuerza superior a ellos.
And we had a higher force
Teníamos
to them
la moral de
because
Bolívar,
we had Bolivar's moral and the truth of our Savior Jesus Christ.
resistimos.
We faced them, we resist them, we defeated them, and one by one they all went down.
Todos se secaron. Uno por uno.
One by one.
¿Y el grupo de Lima dónde está?
And where is the Lima group today? Who remembers them?
Quieren
Now they want
reactualizar el grupo
to
Sodoma y Gomorra
update the group to Sodoma and Gomorrah,
de gobiernos arrastrados
of governments
y de expresidentes
that
pedófilos corruptos
of decaying governments and former corrupt and pedophile presidents that work in drug trafficking. All of them.
ofrecen a Venezuela.
What do they offer Venezuela?
Recolonizarla,
To colonize it again,
gobernarla ellos,
to govern it themselves, to lead them through a puppet.
por eso Venezuela,
That is why Venezuela,
hoy nuestro pueblo,
today our people,
enarbola su derecho a la legítima
flies the flag of the right to the legitimate self-defense, the constitutional defense of our democracy, of our institutionality, of our constitution, and of our right to peace,
al futuro.
which is the right to the future.
Venezuela está ejerciendo
That is why Venezuela is exercising constitutionally and legally all the actions of legitimate defense,
y externa, y tenga la
internal
seguridad
and external defense, and be certain that from this one we will come out even better than in all the previous battles that we had, and we will have more peace, more recovery, more growth, and more strength as a country,
y lograremos la admiración de los
and we will
pueblos
manage
del mundo.
the admiration of the peoples of the world.
Y el grupo de Sodoma Gomorra
And the group of Sodoma and Gomorrah
y su títere,
and their puppets,
el esperpento que no puede ni caminar, ese títere
that guy that cannot even walk right, that puppet,
también le llegará la hora como a Guaidó.
his time will also come as it did to Guaidó.
A Guaidó lo mantuvieron 2019,
At Guaidó they
2020,
upheld him 2019, 2020,
2021,
2021,
2022
2022,
y ya en el 2023.
and then in 2023,
americano,
the US
con
empire,
engaño,
with their
preparando
deceit
todo este
diplomacy, preparing all this ambush,
los demócratas que son tan buenos,
those
tan
Democrats that are so well intended, you know,
chéveres, una diplomacia tan chévere, tienen tanta palabra, ¿verdad? Los que gobernaron,
those people that have honorable words, those guys that are in the government that are going from the government now, true, we know them well.
nosotros nadie nos va a echar cuento.
No one's gonna come here and tell the stories because we have seen them face to face.
¿Sabes quién tenía palabra hace 200 años?
You know who had
El jefe de
word
los ejércitos,
200 years ago? The head of the Spanish armies, General
¿sabes quién tenía
Murillo.
palabra
You know who had word
el
uh,
jefe de los
200 years
ejércitos
ago?
del sur canterano,
The head
derrotado
of
por
the
nuestro muchacho
armies
Antonio
of the
Mercedes
South, defeated by our
Bolívar firmó en Trujillo
Antonio Mercedes
un
Sucre.
22 de noviembre de 1820
Bolivar signed
el tratado de
over 200
regulación
years
de
ago
guerra,
the Treaty of Realization of
y
War.
Bolívar con Morillo
And Bolivar with
terminaron
Murillo,
admirándose.
they ended up admiring each other because they were both men of honor, even though they were at war each other. And what a war they had.
Sucre y Canterac
Sucre and Canterac. despite that Spanish army had killed all the brothers of Sucre. As soon as Sucre was proposed the surrender, he negotiated the document where all Spanish troops would be surrendered. What an achievement. And Canterac withdrew. Then in Spain, he was head of the Spanish army with the passing of time, and he never forgot that young man that defeated him, Antonio José de Sucre, Toñito de Comola. He never forgot him. Because they had honor, they had word, those Spanish military chiefs. A Guaidó, they withdrew him in 2023. Everything was ready. Diplomacy of the seat was already prepared. I won't say any more. The only thing I will say, Dr. Jorge Rodriguez, as president of the legislative power of Venezuela, the legitimate power, constitutional power of Venezuela, you've had to live all these experiences. What I can tell you is never again diplomacy of the seat. That is over. Venezuela will be respected. And those that don't have honor, don't have a word, it's over with them. This is the last year of this assembly. 4 years with a result extremely positive. Was this said in the 2020 campaigns? I remember the desperate attempts by the imperialist diplomacy of the United States of that time and the desperate efforts of some opposition sectors so that elections would not be held for the National Assembly of 2020. And we said, it doesn't matter if it rains or thunderstorms, it doesn't matter anything. There will be an election for the National Assembly. And Gustavo Timoteo, I quote you because you have been one of people that have been here in these historical moments from the opposition, from the social democracy of Venezuela. And I hear a lot of your analysis, even though I don't share some of your opinions. But you say that it is possible to live together. It's not that it's only possible, but it is necessary that Bolivarians, supporters of Chavez and revolutionaries can live and understand and live alongside with all the leadership and opposition sectors that believe in the Constitution and democracy. With the arrival of the National Assembly, with the new National Assembly, on January 5th, 2021, we began a great time of progress in the stability of the country, and we began this cycle of recovery that for 14 months we had a real recovery of the economy in Venezuela. It came simultaneously. Political stability, political peace, political. In the year 2021, there were elections at the regional levels, and in 2021, Dr. Jorge Rodriguez, the month of growth began. In 2022, we had 15% of growth of the economy. In 2023, 5.5%. In 2024, Central Bank has not given the numbers, but I think, according to the International National Statistics, that is going to be above 9% of the GDP. The economic recovery is a reality of our country. We must strengthen it. So simultaneously, in the year 2025 has to be a year of progress, and of consolidation.
Podemos dejar que nos roben la paz,
We cannot let them steal our peace, our economic recovery, our social recovery, and the right that Venezuela has to follow its own path, its own model,
destino
and its own destiny with this constitution
al mando.
in hand.
He tomado nota
I
de
took
las
note
importantes leyes
of the important laws
que el año 2024
that the year 2024
lograron aprobar en consulta pública,
passed in public consultations,
y que crea el estado de la Guayana Esequiba.
the law that creates the Guayana Esequiba state.
Este año hay elecciones de gobernaciones también.
This year is going to be an election in the governorship,
Elegir por primera
and we're
vez
going to, for the first time, elect the governor of the state of Guayana Esequiba, thanks to the law approved by the National Assembly, so that all candidates get ready.
la Guayana Esequiba
Guayana Esequiba will have, for the first time in history, by mandate of law, an elected government elected
cosa bonita, ¿verdad?
by the people of Guayana Esequiba.
Voy a hacer campaña para allá.
I will go to that campaign over there for that beautiful thing, to support those elections.
Igualmente aprobaron la reforma de la ley
Also, they approved the reform of the organic law
del poder comunal,
of the
ampliando la
communal
democracia,
power, broadening democracy and participation.
En noviembre aprobaron
In November, approved the organic law of the justice and peace
15 de diciembre
of Venezuela. On December 15th, we had the first election of judges for peace. So from here, I greet all the judges of peace, the main ones and the substitutes
circuitos comunales del país.
of nearly 2,000 communal circuits of the country. What a wonderful thing. If you could speak and listen the level that the judges of peace for peace have, we will be amazed. It proves that we have some values and rose awareness of a people that is educated, professional, very valuable people in the communities, that their opinion was never taken into account, and that was a debt that we had. This year 2025, we also have to strengthen, we have to go
Fortalecimiento
a strengthening
de la capacidad de defensa del país.
of the capacity of defense of the country.
Pedido al ministro Vladimir Padrino López
I asked Minister Vladimir Padrino Lopez,
activado ayer
as on the context of activating yesterday
órgano de dirección de la defensa integral del país, fue
the Integral
activado por
Defense
primera vez en
Body
nuestra historia, la ODI,
for being activated, which is done for the first time in our history. I asked that they also draft and present before, in the shortest amount of time, a special law before the National Assembly for the functioning of the
integral del país,
integral defense bodies of the country,
ODI, como
the
parte
special
del
law
organismo
of ODI as the
del Estado y la sociedad
main
venezolana
body of the state and society to exercise their legitimate right to defense in the face of foreign and internal
reunión especial día de
threats. We're gonna talk about this in a meeting today.
nuestra democracia.
This body is already activated to defend our democracy, our constitution, our sovereignty, and our territorial integrity, and our right and the right of our people. So this is something a special call I make for the Defense Commission of the National Assembly
Coordine con el vicepresidente
to coordinate with the Vice
jefe Vladimir
President of Sovereignty Vladimir Padrino, that
conocimiento
he can participate with the Commission of Foreign Policy. Look for,
hablando con Silita,
I was speaking with Celia,
dar experiencia,
to look for experiences,
porque entonces parece
because it seems that all the countries in the world,
derecho a defender
they have the right to defend themselves from terrorism, whether it comes from abroad or domestic, from the threats.
parece que todos los líderes
It seems that all the world leaders have the right to denounce coup d'etats and to defend themselves from coup d'etats, but it seems that Nicolás Maduro and Venezuela don't have that right, that we have to let these aggressions happen and let all these hitmen and terrorists attack us and assume our defeat by coup d'etats announced by TikToks, because they do it because that's something of progressive now, to let ourselves be attacked. They are mistaken. They are completely mistaken with us. The Venezuelan state and the Venezuelan people has the right to the legitimate self-defense before an announced coup d'etat. You know that 125 foreign mercenaries have been detained from 25 nationalities. Yesterday, 3 Ukrainian mercenaries were detained coming from the war. We detained 2 U.S. citizens, a high official from the FBI and a high official from the military branch. They fell with their hands dirty. We have the evidence. We have 2 hitmen from Colombia in two different locations, and they confess what their mission was. And yesterday, during overnight today, the detention of other mercenaries continue because one information leads to another one. There's lots of great information to dismantle what we are dismantling, a mercenary foreign aggression financed by the outgoing government of the United States. So I tell the world, to the whole world, first learn what is happening in Venezuela, which is the call to a coup d'etat, the call to a civil war, again another call to a civil war, another call to a coup d'etat, and we won't stay with our hands crossed. Never. We already have the experience that we had then. How many years is it going to be? 23 years? From the coup d'etat of April 11th. A denounced coup d'etat. We denounced it with proofs. A coup d'etat that everyone knew. They called on it on TVs and radio and the press. The same as always. Back then there were no social medias. How old were you? 8 years you had, and you will have 7, and you 9. Just little children. And you had 8. You 5, 6. Old children. 20. Was a small kid also. I had 39. So very young. They call it, and they executed it. And they hired mercenaries that April 11th, snipers, foreigner snipers, to kill their own people in the Banal Avenue, to create the motive, the narrative, the reason to give the coup d'etat against Commander Hugo Chavez and call him a criminal, a murderer. Chavez murdered people. They assaulted power, and right here in this hall, in this palace, Pedro Carmón arrived protected in Bogota, a lead coup actor that dissolved all the powers. Pedro, the first thing that he dissolved was the Constitution. He dissolved the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. With that one single decree, he dissolved the Supreme Court of Justice, the Attorney General, the National Electoral Council, the Ombudsman Office, the National Assembly. With one single pen, he took away all the governors that went and signed the decree where he was being dissolved. Your colleague. Manuel Rosales signed the decree. Today Manuel Rosales is governor. Why? Because the people voted for him. What? I don't know if he will continue. Democracy has been too forgiving to those that have stopped the Constitution. Too forgiving. And I think that time has ended. We are decided that the time of conspiracy and conspirators ends, and a new time comes in Venezuela. And before an announced coup d'etat, an executed coup d'etat, On April 11th and 12th, they underestimated the people.
general en jefe que está aquí,
This general-in-chief that is here next to me, back then was, when he was young, back then,
Batallón Bolívar,
he was a commander of a battalion in Caracas.
y esta juventud militar junto al
And
pueblo
this military youth, next to the people, came together to re-establish the constitution and to rescue alive Commander Chavez without firing a single shot. On April 13th and 14th, you don't have that experience that we had, but that's why we have to tell you and transmit it. And we said
dijimos,
back then,
ustedes nos escucharon muchas veces decir,
you heard us a lot of times say, never again an April 11th.
cada 11 tendrá
But
13.
every 11th will have a 13th. And I say today, Dr. Jorge Rodriguez,
Más nunca
never again an April 11th,
el 13
because on the 13th will be before the 11th.
árdale a quien le arda. Y el que esté
It
metido en
doesn't matter
conspiraciones y
who it
complot,
pains, and those that
le
are
verá la cara
in conspiracy and complots will see the face of the
a
Constitution
la ley,
and law
a la justicia,
and justice,
porque Venezuela tiene
because
derecho
Venezuela has the right to peace,
a la democracia.
to democracy.
Así que avancemos.
So let's move forward.
Ya para terminar estas breves reflexiones,
There is a great issue
doctor Jorge
to
Rodríguez,
end this reflection.
dada,
Dr. Jorge Rodriguez, deputy is here.
un gran tema, que es el tema de la reforma constitucional.
That is the issue of the constitutional reform.
Yo estoy muy decidido. Es más,
I'm very decided.
tomando el ejemplo del comandante Hugo
Taking the
Chávez,
example of Commander Hugo Chavez, I announce
que el 10 de enero,
that on January 10th,
luego de haber
after
hecho el juramento
taking my
obligatorio
oath as
constitucional
mandated by the Constitution
ante la Asamblea
before
Nacional
the
de la
National
República
Assembly of the
Bolivariana
Bolivarian
de
Republic of Venezuela,
Venezuela, primer decreto que firmaré
the first decree I will sign will be
constituyendo una amplia comisión nacional
constituting
e internacional
a broad national and international commission to go to a great constitutional reform with debates and dialogues of all political sectors, social sectors, economic sectors of the country.
En esta oportunidad,
In this occasion,
esa reforma constitucional
that constitutional reform
tendrá que darse en el seno de la Asamblea Nacional
will have
en
to
este
come
año
at the
cinco
seat
que le toca
of the National Assembly
a la
in
Asamblea.
this 5th year of the National
Será la
Assembly.
Asamblea Nacional el epicentro
The National Assembly will be the epicenter of a great
que
debate
llegar y mover las fibras
that has to
democráticas.
move the democratic
Ustedes me
grounds.
preguntaran,
If you ask me,
¿cuál es el objetivo de esa gran reforma
what is the
constitucional?
objective of that great constitutional reform, I would say
Definir con claridad
to define with
el
clarity
modelo de desarrollo venezolano
the model of Venezuelan development for the next
y
30 years
democratizar
and to democratize
hasta el infinito la
to the
vida
infinite and
política,
beyond
social
the
de
political
Venezuela.
social life of Venezuela. Transform this state in a true democratic state of the people, for the people, with the people, of the people, for the people, with the
Ahí está
people.
definido. Alfred Nazaret,
That's the definition.
encargado de sistematizar
Alfred Nazaret, you that are in charge
los políticos, ustedes
of
son
writing the
teóricos y prácticos.
political documents.
Ahí está el objetivo.
That's the objective.
Debate.
The
Profesora
debate.
Rosa Molina, profesora Tania Díaz, compañera, ustedes que tienen en la Universidad de
You know that
Comunicación,
at the University of Communication, International Communication, you have so many spaces of relations, of world relations. I would like that we would make a proposal for the planning,
de
a proposal
importantes hombres y mujeres de Venezuela
of
y del mundo para configurar esa
important
constitución
men and women of Venezuela
para una
to
reforma constitucional
create and form part of this commission that managed to create a constitutional reform that ends with harmony and the reunification of Venezuela among a common project. And we have to build a great consensus of a Venezuelan of peace, of a Venezuela for the future among all Venezuela without
allá el extremismo,
exclusions.
allá los vendepatria,
Who
allá
cares
los
of
bandidos.
fascist extremism and those that sell their homeland? Those that are in charge will be the justice will be in charge of them
Pero es una,
with the Venezuelan laws. But this is a tremendous work.
yo estoy muy motivado
I'm highly motivated
por todas las tareas, los
for
retos
all
que
these
tenemos.
tasks and challenges we have.
Son verdaderos retos virales
They are true challenges, but in positive.
a esto. Son retos virales que valen la pena
Challenges that are worth it
uno sentir que la vida,
for one to feel
la vida
that life,
de uno y la vida de un país
that one's life and the life of the country has meaning and has a great meaning
construir
to build
la felicidad del pueblo,
happiness of the people,
construir
to
la
build
paz y la armonía,
peace and harmony,
construir la unificación
peace,
de los venezolanos,
unification of
de
Venezuelans.
los que pretenden
And before those that pretend
odio,
to sow
deseo
hate,
de venganza, a los que
vengeance,
pretenden
those
emboscar
that
con
want to
comanditos,
create
con
ambushes
violencia,
with commandos and violence, go out there and face them.
podrá más,
Who will be stronger,
el amor o el odio,
love or hate?
¿qué es más fuerte?
What's stronger?
Tiene que ser el amor
Has to be love.
por la patria, por la familia,
For homeland,
por la
for
comunidad,
country, for
nuestra historia.
family, for
¿Qué podrá
our
más?
history, for our
Los que quieren
community.
violencia, enfrentamiento
Who will
y
be
guerra
stronger?
civil,
Those that want
ellos
violence and civil war and foreign intervention, or those who want peace and national union and respect for our sovereignty? Who will be stronger?
Constitución,
The Constitution,
instituciones,
the institutions,
unidas,
united in perfect popular military union, police union.
podrá más,
Who will be
la
stronger?
democracia y el pueblo de
Democracy
Venezuela,
and the people of Venezuela,
o el imperio,
or the empire
su deseo voraz
with their
y delirante de
greed
dominar el mundo. Yo sé
and
que
their
todas
desire to dominate the world?
podremos
I know who will be stronger.
y todas, con el favor de Dios,
We will be stronger with the favor of God Almighty,
con el ejemplo de Cristo
with the
Redentor
example
con nosotros,
of Jesus Christ the Redeemer always with us, and with the strength of believer. I congratulate all of you.
en los próximos días.
We will see each other in the coming days. We have different appointments,
Motivado
and I'm highly motivated
con lo que será
with what
este año
is to come
2025,
this year 2025,
con puertas,
where doors are fully open
bendecidos,
to bless years full of miracles,
preciosos para toda Venezuela.
great years for the whole of Venezuela. Thank you very much for this information and for this institutional visit. Thank you.
Y que Dios los bendiga a
And
todos.
God be with you. God bless you.
Señoras y señores, por su amable atención, muchas gracias y muy buenas tardes.
Well, this was the
Ha concluido
meeting. The National Assembly, as mandated by the institution, came to present the new legislative year after the installation of the National Assembly last Sunday to the President Nicolás Maduro. President Nicolás Maduro received this notification of the beginning of the legislative activities of the National Assembly for the year 2025. Received the official document of the Board of Directors established by the Constitution. The President Nicolás Maduro went over the history of the National Assembly and the achievements that it has had and all that has been accomplished in these last 4 years of economic recovery. We're seeing live here on our screen, here in teleSUR English.